So, today in reading, we are going to talk about the four big questions to notice and note, and we're going to learn how to annotate them. And you'll watch me as I do it alongside you. So, the four big questions are: what surprised me? What did the author think I already knew? What challenge, changed, or confirmed what I knew? And what life lessons am I learning? All right, so I'm going to pull up the text, which is right here. And we are going to get into how we're going to annotate it. Okay, so this is an article called Fans Hope Marvel Comic Book Improves Native Representation. And it is something that you should have already read. And if you haven't read it, I'd like for you to pause this video and go ahead and follow the directions on the previous slide. For those of you who are ready to go, let's get right into it. All right, so where I highlighted is where I did some thinking and some annotating. So this part of the text says, Verge grew up reading comic books on his tribe's land outside Seattle, Washington. He related more to non-native heroes such as Iron Man or Spider-Man. Now he's living a dream. He's overseeing a Marvel comic book about native stories told by native people. So right here in this purple text box is where I stopped and did some thinking, and here's my annotation. I said, this surprised me because as a Native American, he had no one that looked like him, no representation. I remember feeling like this too when I couldn't find dolls at the store that looked like me. So one of our four big questions in nonfiction is what surprised you? And this definitely surprised me. About his experience. All right, I am going to go ahead and look right here. Now, right here, it says Marvel Comics announced in August that it has gathered native artists and writers for Marvel Voices, Indigenous Voices #1. The books will revisit some of Marvel's native characters. It will come out during Native American History Month in November. Now, my annotation for that is the author may think that I already know the history of this problem in the comic book world. So, what does the author think that I already know? They might already think that I have some idea of this situation or this problem. Okay, as I'm scrolling down, I want to show you a few other annotations I made. Let's see here. Right here, in this section of the text, it says, in comics, Native Americans often have been the villain or the quiet sidekick. It's frustrating when everybody else gets a cool costume and you get a headdress. Desbev Evans, meanwhile, also identified with Marvel's X-Men. This series is about young characters struggling with powers while being mistreated by society. That seems to parallel how America treats indigenous communities. Okay, so right there, my comment here, if I can pull it up, is right here. I had to move it a little bit. I never thought that the comparison of the X-Men to the way that Native Americans are treated in society would be similar. This is true because both groups were seen as outcasts. And then if you go down further, or actually right above it, I forgot to talk about this one. I highlighted racist stereotypes are in comic books because the artists often use what they saw in movies and TV shows. Francis said, stereotypes are general ways of looking at people or their races. My comment there is the author may think that I know what a racist stereotype is, but gave the definition in the next sentence. So that was a little confusing at first, but because they gave the definition of a stereotype, that helped clear it up. All right, and then I highlighted down here, right here, whenever I think of super native women, they're all mothers. My mom, my grandma, They're the first heroes in all of our lives, Evan said. It would be really interesting to have a modern Indigenous mom living and being a superhero. So on this one, I said, I love the idea of a modern superhero that's a Native American mom. Now, that is not one of the four big nonfiction questions, but it is still thinking because you're connecting to the text. It's more book head heart for sure. And then right here, I also highlighted the word indigenous. And I was confused by the word indigenous. The author may assume that I know what it means. From the text clues, it looks like it means Native American. So, whenever you have hard words or a part you don't know, that's probably confusing. So, you want to stop and make sure you're annotating about it and even trying to guess what it means using the clues. And lastly, towards the end of the article, I just would like to see more Native American artists on mainstream products. That might not be far off. When Verigay meets children on the reservation where he grew up or elsewhere, their parents often point out his work for Marvel. He values these meetings. I get to tell kids, I grew up on this reservation too. You can do this too, Verigay said. So I highlighted that part and annotated. I said, I learned that it is important to have representation in books, movies, and other media. This really helps build a person's self esteem and belief in themselves because they feel worthy and seen. I also had another thought. I'm learning that the world still has a ways to go to bring about equal representation, but there are still efforts being made. Okay, so that is exactly what I would like for you to do in your independent reading. You're going to highlight a section. You're going to then annotate one of the four questions off to the side. Now, if you're not Also, if you notice that some of my learning kind of happens at the end, and that's probably because I've had an opportunity for my brain to read and understand the information so that at the end, I should have something that I learn. Now, does that mean that you can't learn something in the middle? Absolutely not. You can definitely learn new things or new facts, definitely somewhere in the middle for sure, but everyone should have some kind of learning at the end for sure. Okay, so once you are ready, you are going to jump into your own independent reading and try this on your own with an article that you have found. Good luck.